Edgar Chavez versus Josh Van. I left this till last because this is proper weird. I like Josh Van. I was looking into him 2 fights ago, whenever. But he just had that fight with Charles Johnson. And when I say just, I mean 2 months ago. And he got smoked in the third round. It was a really good fight from Johnson, the best I've seen Johnson look ever. Johnson was lancing up left straight, circling off, pulling him into clinches and kneeing him to stop him opening up on the inside or in trading range. He did a great job of just making it so Josh Van couldn't get going with what Josh Van normally does. Then he came out to the third round and he just knocked him out with a couple of punches followed by a big running uppercut once he'd wobbled him. But that was 63 days ago. And Josh Van's medical suspension, I went back and looked it up, 60 days. So this guy looked at his medical suspension and saw it as a deadline and said, right, I can book a fight then. Because this is the first possible event he could get on. And the thing about medical suspensions is that fighters will follow them absolutely begrudgingly. But they will follow them in only as far as they're legally required to, which is like you can't book a fight in the same jurisdiction or one that recognizes that commission during that time. You are still in the gym training, and if you've got a fight coming up, you're probably going to be sparring. So it's like, it's not non-contact at all. It's not no contact time. It's just, he's just carried on doing what he normally does. This massive knockout he suffered has not affected him at all. Unless he didn't spar for this camp, but still, that's only 60 days. You're still going in there, not exactly fresh. And sometimes these things don't matter at all. Was it Cub Swanson? Sorry, Frankie Edgar did a really quick turnaround to get back in the win column after getting beaten up badly. Can't remember who against, but it might have been after the Ortega one. But he should have been medically suspended for longer, and he won. He did great. But then there's also examples of people not doing that. Marlon Moraes' career, I believe the massive decline in his chin. People's chins decline over time anyway, especially after you've been knocked out a couple of times. By the end, he was a parody of himself. It was like he'd come out strong, he'd get hit with one punch, and he'd just collapse. Or late era Chuck Liddell or someone like that. And while we don't have any science to back this up, I'm reading some great books about CTE at the moment, but we don't have science for like the mechanism of why this happens. But jumping back in too soon seems to diminish your chin and affect the amount of damage you can take next time round. And then fighters have this mental thing where they have to keep getting back in there to get one in the win column. So you chase your losses, and that's exactly what happened to Marlon Moraes. He just kept coming back in shorter and shorter turnarounds and getting knocked out quicker and quicker. So I really don't like that. Josh Van could absolutely win this one. Chavez is a decent hitter, but like Josh Van is very good and tough and has skills that he could feasibly fight a fight here where he doesn't engage in too many trades. He wrestles a bit. He's got strong wrestling along the cage, or decent wrestling along the cage. But I really don't like this practice. I really don't like it. And the UFC can't do anything because this is technically after his medical suspension. I mean, they could not offer him a fight so soon because they managed to do that with hundreds of other fighters. But, they're not in the wrong here. Josh and his team are. And it's hard to say that they're in the wrong because, I'm telling them off, but he needs to make some money and make a living. It's just a bit shit. Every time we talk about this, I say Manny Pacquiao had that awful knockout loss to Juan Manuel Marquez where he fell face down, didn't wake up for a while. They had to give him loads of CT scans. They weren't very happy at all. Freddie Roach refused to let him spar for a year, but made him come in and train on the mitts and stuff. Comes back, continues fighting to 40, never been knocked out since. Chin's looked amazing. I was talking about this with someone the other day. Daniel Bryan, the pro wrestler, had to quit pro wrestling because he was having like concussions at the lightest touch. And he got brain scans done and they said, Jesus, do not wrestle, you might die. So he ended up in this on-air talent, but not wrestling role in WWE. And of course, WWE are super strict about that stuff, the brain stuff and the wrestling injured. But their doctors ended up clearing him. And he's been wrestling like without, knock on wood, any negative effect since then. Edge was a similar one with his neck. But these guys, they were like retired for life. And then they said they got the itch to come back much later. And they said, okay, well, I'll go to the doctors and we'll do thorough physicals. And they got approved because something in the time and the rest healed them. But very few people have the luxury to not then go back and get a normal job. Manny Pacquiao was already a multi-millionaire. Daniel Bryan, Edge, they had jobs with the WWE as on-air talents and could pick up a paycheck without wrestling. If Josh Van stops fighting, maybe he teaches some classes at his gym, but he's probably going back to his job. Anyway, what a sad note to end that on, but